Okay, here's an exercise that I made up for my sort of my beginning students. It's called a chromatic scale exercise. And chromatic scales just basically mean that you are playing every note on the guitar. So for instance, if you started on a C, your next note would be C sharp, then D sharp, E, etc., etc. So chromatic scales can be played on any instrument. On the guitar and stringed instruments, they're pretty handy because it gives you a lot of exercise in coordinating your hands together. Now, fair warning, they don't sound much like music. They sound like exercises, but you got to trust me. It's a very good exercise to do. So I've got a couple of different exercises, and this first one I call the fives and fours chromatic scale. And you probably won't hear anybody else calling it a fives and fours. I don't know. I think it's just a name that I made up just so I can communicate with my students. The reason I call it fives and fours is because on each string, we're going to be playing 5 notes, except for one instance, and you'll see that as we go along. Okay, so let's start on the lowest E string. Remember, even though it's, closest to our nose, it's the lowest note in terms of tone. So we're going to start on our E string, and we're going to start on the first fret, and we're going to play 5 notes. We only got 4 fingers, so we're going to slide the pinky up for that last note. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're now going to go up to our A string, or 5th string, and we're going to do that same sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's go up to the D string, or the 4th string, do that same series. So far, so good. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. When we get to the 3rd string, we're only going to do 4 notes. So there's no need to slide that pinky. Let's go up to the 2nd string, or the B string, play 5 notes, and up to the E string and play 5 notes. Oh, let me try that again. Gee, anybody else would have edited that mistake out, but not me. Okay, so once you've gotten to this point, you have ascended that chromatic scale. And what we're going to do is to descend the chromatic scale, but we're going to move our 4th finger up one more so that we're hitting a different set of notes. Okay, so this time we're going to go backwards 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to take that 4th finger, put it on the same fret that we started on the 1st string, but here we're only going to go backwards 4 notes. Let's go down to the G string, or the 3rd string, and now we're going to go back 5 notes. Okay, we're going to go down to the D, or the 4th string, and go 5 notes down, descending. Same thing with the A string. And finally with the low E string. Now you notice that when I'm ascending the scale, that there's only 4 notes played on the G string. And when I'm descending the scale, there's only 4 notes played on the B string. And that just basically has to do with the way that the guitar is tuned. Trust me, it does make sense, mostly because of how you play chords. But let me go ahead and play this example for you here, both ascending and descending. And I'll play it a little more quickly, and I won't be calling out the numbers so that you can hear the sound of this. When I'm ascending, you should hear that every note that I play is slightly higher than the note before it. Okay, let's try it. I think you can tell that each time we're playing a new note, it goes slightly higher. And it's actually called a half step each time. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start our descending scale. We're going to be moving everything up a fret, so it sounds like this. Okay, so that's our fives and fours. But of course, we're not going to end there. We're going to start another ascension and descension, but we're going to slide it up one more. So instead of starting on the first string, on the first fret of the sixth string, we're going to start on the third fret. So we're going to repeat that process over and over again, slightly, going higher and higher and higher up on the guitar until you're at the point where it's not comfortable anymore. And that will depend on whether you're playing acoustic or electric, or if you're playing acoustic and you've got a cutaway like on mine, you may be able to play a little bit higher, but play as high as you're comfortable going. Okay? That's the first part of the exercises. Now we're going to go ahead and do chromatic fours, okay? And this time we're going to take a slightly different attitude, and we're going to start as high up on the guitar as we're comfortable with. So I'll just go ahead and say I'm comfortable going up to the 12th fret, and you can see that the dot on my 12th fret is a little bit bigger. On a lot of guitars, you're going to have two dots there, and that indicates that this fret is an octave above the open string. But that's, of course, for another day. Okay, so in this case, we're going to be grouping four notes on a string, but we're going to be shifting in between each string, except, again, there's always an exception, except when we're going from the third to the second when we're ascending, and when we're descending from the second to the third. So let me show you here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm going to shift backwards one fret. So I'm going to do another 4, but I'm going to shift back a fret. See how this is working? I'm going to do another 4, but I'm going to shift back a fret. Now, this one is just called fours, so the only difference is that when I go from my third to my second, I'm not going to shift backwards. So I stay on that same fret. Now, when I go to the first string, I'm going to shift backwards again. Okay? Hope that makes sense. When we're descending, let's go ahead and move everything down one fret because we want to do different scales every time here. So we're going to go ahead and do descending, and again, we're going to do fours. Now we're going to shift up, and normally we would shift up again, but remember we're going from the second to the third string, so it's a little different. We're not going to shift. Now we're going to shift again, shift again and do 4, shift again and do 4. Again, somebody else would edit that out. Yeah, we're all human. We make mistakes. Okay, so I'm going to play that a little bit faster so that you can hear, again, when I'm ascending, each note is going to be slightly higher than the note just before it. And when I'm descending, the opposite is true. Okay, let's give it a shot. Did you hear that? Okay, now let's go ahead and descend. Okay, so that is our chromatic scales, ascending and descending. And the first exercise is called fives and fours. The second I just call fours. Again, these are just names I made up just so I can, communicate them with my students. The other thing that once you get used to and very comfortable and familiar with these is to start doing alternating picking. When I did these exercises, I was doing all down strokes, or hopefully I was doing all down strokes. But once you get to the point where your left and right hands are moving along on this exercise pretty well, go ahead and start alternating. Let me show you how that goes. I'll show you on the fives and fours here, or the fives and four. So. See how my pick is changing direction every time I play? Another note. So you'll want to make sure to get to that point where you're alternating your up and down strokes. This is a very, very important technique in developing smoothness and speed. And as always, I would encourage you to practice this with a metronome. That way you know that you are not giving more time to some notes than others, or when there's a difficult transition, you want the time in that time during the transition to be the time as any other notes. Okay, so thanks for watching. See you next time.